The foundation of human understanding teaches an observation exercise, often called meditation, which permits you to become objective toward your problems and allows your heartaches, bad habits, fears, and anxieties to be completely eliminated from your life without effort on your part. Until you have begun to practice this exercise, much of what you see and hear on the following program may be shocking and upsetting to you. But if you will listen calmly and with an open mind, you may discover the key to the peace of mind and joy for which you've been searching all of your life. And now, from the foundation of human understanding, here is Roy Masters.
Hello, I'm Roy Masters, and I don't have any degrees. That doesn't mean to say I'm not smart. I am. But I'm not pedigreed smart. I've always known that knowledge is a form of ignorance. And that once you lose yourself in knowledge, thinking that you get smart, you're only smart because you think you're smart. Yes, you think that you're smart, but you're not smart. You're just involved in mechanical thoughts and ideas, and from that point onwards, you've lost something called understanding, the ability to put ideas together, the ability to reach for ideas and discover new things like Einstein. We're all capable people like Einstein, but something's happened to us. The school system, your church, your parents, victims of the school system, the political system, and the church, have lost that understanding with which to bring you up. And that's what you saw missing in your parents. That's something missing called love, a brightness. As a matter of fact, you might have been threatened, you might have threatened their dumbness, their idea of what smart was. And they might have reacted to your innocence and your perception and put your lights out. Made you think that simply knowing without knowing why you knew was wrong. That it was wrong to see something wrong with them, which there was. And so you thought there was something wrong with seeing something wrong with them. After all, they were your parents, they were authorities, they're supposed to know. And they gave you the idea that you didn't know and they did. That was the biggest mistake you ever made in your life. Does anybody understand what I just said? How many people understand that? Honest. Good, see? I'm trying to make something simple for you, if you don't mind. I'm going to be speaking to you this evening about some very interesting and simple principles. And I invite you to stop me anytime you want to, because probably you wanted to stop me already. And dialogue with me, and disagree with me, agreeably. Ask me to explain what I mean by whatever it is I say. But I'm going to show you some very simple principles, just like I did just now, didn't I? Isn't that very basic? Isn't that when you were a little child, you had it, and now you're older, you don't have it? And now that you don't have it, you think you do. And you become a parent. See? And that's the problem. This is what's wrong with the human race. We had it, and the day we're born, or pretty close to that time, we lose it. Some of us don't lose it completely. I was very fortunate. I didn't lose it at all. Somehow, they just couldn't lay it on me. I just kept laying it on them back, and they don't like it to this very day. Now I'm not a little child anymore, looking through those original eyes and disturbing the hell out of those people. It's a war of the worlds is what it is. Where I'm coming from is at war where they're coming from. And they hate me. They hate you. They've always hated you. They've always hated your brightness. and your childlike innocence? They. Who are they? The great unwashed masses, the leaders, the preachers, the rabbis. All the educated ignorant. As I said, knowledge is a form of ignorance, a form of thinking yourself wise in your own eyes, but forgetting the truth that you're not, and never wanting to face it by gathering to yourself more knowledge, heaping to yourself religious verses and chapters, thinking that you can make things right that's gone wrong by the great amount of learning that you acquire. Oh, following me so far? Isn't your problem that you are a victim in this battle for your mind? And you thought you were dumb, and you thought that they knew, and you tried to know and to become like them, and you couldn't make it? How many people understand what I'm saying? More than you can shake a stick at. Now, here's the good news. I'm waiting for your questions, and I'm waiting for your... but I seem to be homing in on the right beam, right? See, now, do we see that there's a war for your spirit? And that 6 billion people, how many people on the planet? 6 billion people? And how many of them have gone down the path to destruction? Suicide, accidents, mental illness, depression, murder, drunkenness, alcoholism. What's wrong? Something's gone wrong with all these people. You don't see alcoholic sheep. You don't have a police force for the sheep or sheriff's department for the sheep force. You see? You don't have 2,000 different diseases. You don't have insanity among sheep, except maybe rabies or something, which is not really a mental problem. I mean, not even wolves kill one another. But the human race destroys and violates and corrupts and maims and murders mentally, emotionally, and physically. We degrade one another. We knock each other down and build ourselves up. We plunder. We violate. We rape. We murder. We prey on one another. But sheep don't prey on sheep. Not even wolves prey on wolves. How do you account for that? Man's inhumanity to man. Is it because the mind of those people who prey on others has been altered, brainwashed, and the spirit of the dark side of the force lives in them. And they have no life of their own except they take yours. And we're going to discuss these things, if I can get a peep out of you. Yes. Oh, we have a young lady. Whew, I thought I was going to talk all night. I was just running out of juice.
I've had experience like that, when I have, friends, so-called friends, and when
so-called friends.
Yeah, and when I was, going along with their wrong and stuff like that, they really didn't look for me that much, and I used to hang out with them.
When you were going along with their wrongs, you didn't what?
They didn't used to look for me as much. They could do with or without me, and I was, because we'd all comfort each other and stuff like that. But now it seems like, I'm trying to back away from them and try to stay by myself and do what's right. And it seems like they're all coming to me now, because
it's like you drop out of the church and you start to see what the church is like. Everybody wants to come and save you and tell you that you're going to go to hell and damnation if you don't go back to the church. The truth of the matter is they're discovering that they are, you see, you've got two innocent eyes looking at people and you make them uncomfortable.
Yeah.
When you set a good example, you set everybody on fire.
Yeah.
But they want to rescue you, don't they?
Yeah,
but they're really rescuing themselves.
Out,
And if they can't rescue you, they'll kill you.
Yeah.
They want to kill you. Now listen, I'm not being fanatic when I'm saying this, but let me just for a little fun here. We got 100 people here tonight. How many people can look back into their past and really believe that their mother or father wanted to kill them? Come on now, whole show of hands. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 20. 20%. That's what those of you who can remember that. But there are those of you, that's killing, right? What about emotionally destroy? All right, we got the rest of you. Now let's be honest. They wanted to kill you mentally, emotionally, and physically. In other words, they destroy you so completely in such a manner that really they'd look innocent. Like you had an accident, or you'd have some emotional breakdown, and they try to help you, but while they're helping you, they were really pushing you down even further. How many people understand that? Yeah, that's right. And you see it going on all the time, don't you? See, I know there was a lady in a restaurant, big hunky lady, with a big fire ant head. You know, big head, like a fire ant. You know what I mean? Looked fierce. And she used to serve me in this restaurant, and I said, you know something? And she was so sweet and so overly sweet. I said, I bet you're a killer with your kids. She didn't like that. She heard me on radio. I said, I know that your kind of person is very destructive to the souls of your children. And I used to give her some real hell. And I'd give her a tip to hold her attention. Big one. So she'd listen. And she even came in one time for counseling. But she'd never tell the true story of her life. But one of her sons came in, emotionally destroyed completely, in a halfway house, totally destroyed. And I told him, I said, I knew your mother, and I knew she'd done this to you. And he broke down and cried, and he knew it was right. He said, but I have a brother who committed suicide too. He said, I'll drive you to suicide if you don't conform. See, it's like a brainwashing. You know, Rajneesh used the techniques you'll find in every home. You know who Rajneesh was. He was a master brainwasher. He held himself out as the perfect master. And if you didn't understand what he said, of course he would say something's good, but then something's not good, right? And if you didn't understand that and accept it, then there was something wrong with you, not something wrong with them. And that would make you doubt yourself, and make you think, after all, he's the parent. You've got him as your master, and you expect you have this goal. It's like being in West Point. You have to do all kinds of things you don't really want to do if you want to succeed in West Point and get your stars, right? But the point is, if you it's only because you have a goal of being religious and attaining to where the master is, or you have a goal because you want to be a 3-star general, that you allow yourself to be subjected to these things, you see. If you didn't really care, you say, to hell you, I'm not going to do that. I don't care if I don't get my stars, and you walk away. But as a child, you can't do that. With a guru, well, if you want to go to heaven, you have to do as you're told. If you want to get your general stars, you have to submit to that sort of thing, and then you get brainwashed. But as a child in the home, can you really walk away from that? If there's something wrong with your parent and you see that, and the parent makes you think there's something wrong with you for seeing that, we have the basis of schizophrenia, don't we? And mind control and trauma, which sets you up to fail and to make you seek to be accepted by those types of people who created you. So when you leave your mother and father, as a man, you will gravitate to a woman who's just like that. Because that which has been recreated in you, that which has been established by confusion and trauma, is guilty. But it lives. It's the extension of the brainwasher. Something lives in your head that wasn't there before. And it got there through how? Doubting yourself. Being made to doubt. What is the original sin? What is the original brainwashing? Adam doubted the truth, doubted himself. And the moment he did that, a psychic jujitsu, karate took place. He believed what made him doubt. And therefore, a new belief system sprung up in him that was based upon doubting himself and seeking acceptance from that which had succeeded in doing that and causing it to be established in him. So it in us cries out to be loved, to be accepted. And every acceptance we get from a person, it causes us to doubt ourselves. That's why men feel anxiety. All men feel anxiety about being men. But why do they feel anxiety about being men? It's because they're not men. But the ego that's been established in them that hates the truth, hates to know that. See? So it has control of your brain. And it goes back to the woman or to the authority figure that created it for reassurance. Tell me I'm a man. See? Love me the way I am. Help me to doubt. It's not a perfect doubt, because he doesn't want to admit that he's wrong. He became wrong, but what became wrong doesn't want to admit that it is wrong. So therefore, this creature lives through being reassured that it's not wrong, but right. But that's doubt. And the authors of these are all the people in power, authority. And every time you seek love from a person, you're seeking, there's that in you that's seeking to feel secure through reinforcement of an original doubt that was put into you through when you were confused. So that love confuses you. And then you need that love, and then you have to do what they want you to do. Otherwise, they hold back the love and the confusion that you need in order to... See, you need the confusing love, otherwise you start to feel anxiety about what you were, what you are. When you need to feel anxiety about the way you are, you think there's something wrong with the anxiety. I say there's something right about it, in that if you could have that anxiety and stop reaching for love, for approval, stop reaching away from the truth towards the corrupter who loves you and confounding the truth in you to make you feel comfortable because it is from it. See, it cries out to it that created it. See? Who understands me? Whew. Heavy stuff.
It's such a fine line, though, you're skating on.
One second, go ahead.
It's such a fine line when you're skating on it, because I see that for myself, but, everybody has so much support. Like a little child can see it, but then he tells somebody else, and the adult he tells says, oh, your parents love you, and tries to...
Parents don't love their children.
No, but what I'm saying is when they go looking for that reassurance from somebody else to say, this is what they're doing, everybody will say, no, you're wrong. Or if you want to be...
I'm not following you. Are you following him? Yes. Yeah, tell him, say that again, because I'm a little dumb.
Well, I am too, so...
Let me try that. Try that on me again. Try some new words.
Let's put it this way.
You sure you understand him?
Let's put it this way. You see, if you can't spend enough time looking at just that reassurance thing, and then you go out into the world, well, there's so many things to reassure you that you're not wrong, even though you're wrong.
The world is full of things that are so easy to fill that need, right?
Right.
That's society, but that's all self-destruct. Everything that does it is self-destructive.
Right, and so that's what I've been discovering, because I've been up there for a while, just chilling out. But you can't see that until you really just devoid yourself of everything.
You can't see that until you are willing to see the truth. Remember, in every human being, there's either the willingness to see the truth or the unwillingness to see it. The willingness to see it represents a love of truth, a willingness to be selfless, and to abandon one's life to that which the purpose for which we were created. The unwillingness to see the truth is born of pride, that thing which came into us through our violator, and is maintained by lovers everywhere. See how I say that? So now what do you see in the media? Love, love, love you the way you are, and fry it in the bacon and put it in the pan, and never let him forget he's a man, right? Bring home the bacon, and she's got it all, right? She never lets him forget he's a man. See, because if she'd stop reminding him he's a man, he'd be aware that he wasn't, that she'd made a monkey out of him. And the one that makes you feel like you're a man is really the one that's making a monkey out of you, but you can't see it. You can't see it because there's something in you that won't. Therefore, there's a great body of people in the world listening to me right now who immediately throw their hands up and say, I don't know what this guy's talking about. He's mad. Can you see that, can't you? I mean, it's because I see that they're mad because I see. They see that I see, and they see what they don't want to see. They see what they hate. They hate to see. Therefore, they hate truth. Therefore, they hate me who represents it. See, therefore, they don't call it truth, they call it crazy. See? Yes, sir.
It's interesting that you should bring up that commercial, but isn't that her concept of what a man should be?
Who?
The lady that's saying, you know, make my man happy or make him feel like a man.
Bring home the bacon and fry it in a pan and never let him forget he's a man. That's not her concept. Those are the guys that write the commercial who understand fully human weakness. The frightening thing is that Madison Avenue gang, the advertising group, the psychologists, the Pavlovian psychologists, they know the violators and tyrants of our time. They understand human weakness. They have an uncanny understanding of what corruption is and how, once we are corrupted, that we will all cry for the corruptor's love. Like the situation with the terrorists and the victims in an airplane, how after 3 or 4 days of being locked up with the terrorist, they all fall in love with the terrorists and have sympathy for the terrorists. See?
So the powers that be, they intentionally create those situations to manipulate the masses?
They, powers that be, and just if you want to be a powerful manipulator, you've got to really have it in you. I could not do it. You're going to, if you start to do that, and you're going to feed on the adulation and the power that people give you, if you're going to do that, you endanger yourself of becoming a sociopath or a psychopath, because there are two types of people in the world. The sociopath and the psychopath are the leaders. The psychotics are the zombie-like followers who exist in this world of the delusions supplied by their images, by their leaders, by their idols, who they're totally involved with for acceptance. See? So that Hitler can control a whole nation because he excites, by his love nurtures hate. It nurtures the worst in the human nature. Therefore they go out justified to do terrible things. Then feeling guilty, they come back to his love again. And it's a serpentine love. The love of Ayatollah. He loves, he justifies excuses. And the whole country can need his love. And what he does, his love, which they accept, because he is the idol. He is the role model. Because they don't have an identity, because he has taken them away from the identity, which is God, center. When you fall, you lose your identity, your original one, and a new one comes in. And it's a new spirit. So that person can die, but as long as the person who replaces, the king is dead, long live the king, as long as he has the same mean spirit in him, we all recognize it. That's why you go from your mother to your wife, and you find that when you're married to your wife after a few years, she's just like your mother. Or you may even marry a husband, trying to get away from him, and she's in there as well. You say, my God, I married my mother. And she dominates you, right? or you end up dominating him and you become your own mother. Who understands what I just said? We're living in a world of zombies and tyrants. And all of you people are zombies and tyrants. Well, you're weak before the strong, but then you turn around and then you collect your own victims. In other words, it's a system. You become violated, but then you turn around and violate because that's how you get power back. And you pass down that spirit. Well, we've got 2 minutes before the end of the program, and I'd like to just wind it up. It didn't seem like a half an hour, did it? Well, we'll continue in our next segment. But I'd like to mention that if you notice there's no selling going on in this program, no breaks where we're offering you material, better hurry up and do it before. But I do want you to get some cassettes and a book to teach you how to break the conditioning of the past. And in the end of the broadcast, we'll have that information for you. Please write for it, and don't waste any time, because there isn't much time left. You may be drawing your last breath tomorrow. Who knows? And you don't want to die in that condition. I wouldn't if I were you. Not if you can stop the world and get off. And that's what I'm going to show you how to do, how to stop the world and get off. I'm going to show you how to get off. Couldn't resist that one. But if you enjoyed the program, I want you to notice that this is a program of information, not misinformation like most programs. And I've reached very deep and paid for it. The foundation has paid for it, and we're bleeding. And I was hoping that enough of you would appreciate this program to open the wallets and let the moths fly out and send something to the foundation every month to keep us on the TV. This is an experiment for us, and we're not doing that well. But I'm hanging in there with everything I've got. I'm sort of pulling it from all sides, from other programs, because I think it has potential. It needs to catch on. So will you please support our program, and we'll join you tomorrow night.
Part 2 of this program will follow.
Hello, I'm Roy Masters, and we're continuing in our discussion on the subject Battle for the Mind. And there is a battle for the mind going on. I'm sure you can see the conflict in yourself, the struggle for sanity against the forces who wish you not to be sane. Because if you were to believe in yourself again, in the original truth that shone in Adam before paradise was lost, the world would be flooded with light and love and understanding. And no one can control a person who is sure of himself. Of course, when you become corrupted, you're sure of yourself. You see? You're sure about, my wife is very sure of herself. Most stubborn person on the face of the earth. She's actually sure she's strong in her wrong. And that wrong doesn't want me to see that it is. It tries to make me respect her and love her. She dances around on eggshells and serves me tea and coffee, try to get me to see her in a certain light. And I won't see her in a certain light. Then she feels like I'm insensitive, that I don't love her. I do. See, because if I was to capitulate to that, one, I wouldn't love the truth. Two, if I loved her, I'd become a slave. I'd have to doubt myself, wouldn't I? Because what I see is what I see. And those who want to have power, for whatever reason, ego-wise, whether it's feminine power, whether it's political power, religious power, ego power, it's trying to displace the God of this world. I mean, the God of this world is trying to place the God of the true God that created us. There's a war between good and evil, and we stand between two great forces. You can't taste it, you can't touch it, you can't smell it. Each human being is a conduit for good or evil. Some people you can leave your kids with. You can give them $5,000 and $5 million. In 10 years they give it to you back with interest because they're honest. And then some people you couldn't even give your dog. They'd eat it. Is that right or not? They are totally immoral, totally 100% opposite of what good is. They don't love the truth. They hate it when you see the truth, because they cannot evolve the kingdom on earth where people stand firm in what they know is right. That's why we liked a fellow like Oliver North, right? How many people liked him? How many people didn't like him? Good for you. I'd have punched you on the nose and send you out. No, see, the truth of the matter is, you saw something in him that was strong. Couldn't get confused, could he? Do you see the Congress trying to, or the inquisitors trying to confuse him? Couldn't do it. Marvelous quality. Don't you wish you had that? Well, you can, and you've got to develop that, because if you don't, you're going to die. As simple as that. Because there's a war for your mind, and it's not the Russians that the problem is. The problem is right in the United States of America. There's good and evil everywhere. There's good people in Russia, and there's bad ones in Russia. There's good Iranians and bad ones. There's good whites and bad blacks and good whites. Good has nothing to do with race, color, or creed, or culture. And that's why we mustn't identify with culture. You mustn't think black, and you mustn't think Jew, and you mustn't think Catholic, because that's what's wrong with you. The forces of beast separate us into camps. You see? So you're born into a Catholic home, Jewish home, Protestant, I don't care what, an Iranian under Ayatollah Khomeini. And if I wanted to start my own cult, all I'd have to do is put on fancy collar, robes, beard, the usual regalia, right? Usual trappings, and confuse the hell out of somebody, and put my identity into him, and make him give in to me and my teachings, and approve of him when he's confused, good and confused, so that this confused being is subject to my teaching, so he knows more and more about what I'm teaching, but he's becoming more confused. Then I put him in a position of power so he can confuse somebody else. So I get a half a dozen of these guys, and then I make them ministers, or I make them cabinet ministers. See? And pretty soon we have a few thousand of these people, and they bear children. And the children come into the world brightness, and they look at their parents and think they're crazy, but they send them to church every week. And see, because they want to make good Christians or good something out of them. And so now you all grow up to be Catholics, and when the Pope comes to visit you, you all love the Pope, because he's the spiritual leader, because he represents the source of all that crap that he gave you, that trickled all the way down to the masses. None of those people love the Pope. They're all addicted, obsessed with him, and needful of his reassurance. See, now I'm not saying picking Catholicism. I'm not picking it out. I want you to understand it's the same thing with Judaism. It's the same thing with Protestants. And Rajneesh had told him there's not a hair's breadth difference between us.
Why do people think I know that there's people that think that you're cult, why do they think that?
Well, because
you don't have a robe or anything.
No, that's right. You see, the trouble with these people is that when Jesus was here and Socrates was here, they thought he was a cult. And they thought he was, Socrates that is, was corrupting an Athenian youth. But it wasn't him that was corrupting Athenian youth, it was the politicians that were doing it. They always put on you what's in them and try to project to you the very thing that's wrong with them. So you get confused. You saw it recently with the Judge Bork nominations. If you had any brains, you could see what was going on. If you had the original perception, you didn't have to be a lawyer, understand Constitution, you could see there was a war of worlds, couldn't you? It's everywhere. It's in the media, it's in the Congress. Forces of good and evil. And the evil often represents itself as something noble and pure acting in your best interest. God help you. Watch out for people who are acting in your best interests. Fight for your own rights, I say. But find what right is to fight for, yes.
You're talking about the Catholics and Jews and Protestants. I was just wondering if there is a right way, I mean, for the people in the audience who are Catholics and Jews and or whatever, if there's a right way to deal with that within their religion, to deal with the authority, the structure.
Yeah, there is a right way. Because I'm Jewish, so I'm knocking my own system in the manner of speaking. There is a right way, is to see that that way is the wrong way. See? That's the right way. To see that's the wrong way. And that there are none of them that are right. Have you ever brought up in a Baptist home? And the holy roller people? Called fundamental, doing boogie woogies all over the aisle, right? You see? Well, you know, and then you receive the Holy Spirit and you talk in tongues. Well, everyone has a variation of the same thing, but whatever violates you is not intending, whatever is doing that to you and teaching you religion, for the most part, with rare exceptions, is not laying religion on you. You can't lay religion on people. You can't teach people religion. You can't even educate people. That's what the educators don't understand. Education is a big cult too. Like I said in the first segment, it's another form of ignorance. It's a way of receiving the spirit of education as opposed to the spirit of understanding. And then when you receive the spirit of religion, you don't receive the spirit of truth. You receive the spirit of knowledge. Because what was standing when paradise was lost? What was the appeal to the mind or ego of Adam? The knowledge of good. You want to be God? Then you have to doubt God. That's how you become God. But you have to have knowledge too. And knowledge is a way of doubting God. The more you know, the more you think you know. The more you think. And the more you think that you know. The thinker is lost in the thinking. And therefore pride swells up out of that. Do you see that? In conflict. So then you seek for knowledge. The more knowledge gets into you, the more you're guided by a spirit of knowledge, whether it's knowledge of religion. So you seek. So instead of finding the truth within you and going on that journey, the longer I live, the more I leave behind knowledge and come to understanding. Understanding becomes my knowledge. It trickles down into knowledge. And it's knowledge that comes from within and above, that comes from not greedy to know knowledge from without and below. It's not an ego knowledge. It's not a pride. It's not a knowledge that you can puff up with pridefully. Because that kind of knowledge, that part of you that's fed with this kind of knowledge is fed by the source which causes man to fall from an understanding, which corrupts him and gets inside him and makes him cry for that which corrupted him. Any questions? Yes.
I've been battling with that idea.
You have to wade amongst the people.
I've been battling with that idea. Now that I'm getting in touch with God of my own understanding, I'm fairly comfortable with that. But every once in a while, something creeps in, like some nagging doubt that maybe I'm not on the right road, that maybe there's something wrong about having a God of my own understanding, that perhaps I should be still relying on that God that my parents taught me about.
Yes, but it'll always be there until you realize that the God of understanding is the God of understanding, and they ain't.
Yeah, but how do you override that?
If your
nagging?
parents loved you, they will bring you to the one basic truth of all mankind, that the light and truth is in you originally. Never doubt that.
But that wasn't how it was, and perhaps that's when I'm battling.
That's what
Mine was the hell and brimfire kind.
Yes, that one. So you're violated by that, so that instead of being a Catholic, so you're a Baptist.
Not quite.
Or a hell and fire and brimstone. But that violates you. That makes you think you don't know. That upsets you. That tips the balances of good and evil inside your soul. so that you doubt yourself. And when you doubt yourself, the flow, the trickle-down effect of knowledge, where you grow from understanding, and as you grow from understanding, more understanding comes to grow from. See, that process is interrupted, something else gets in there, and now you feel dumb and stupid, and now you seek that source that corrupted you to know yourself, and to be religious, and to be smart, and to get directions. And also, it's for who you are. It's an identity, isn't it? It's an identity. And it's this identity that causes in us a dehumanizing process. One process from within above, original when you were born, if you could hold on to that, you'd flower into a beautiful, gracious, strong, wise, self-determining, self-enlightened, not dependent, independent, not outdependent, gentle, fair, all the superlatives. The other one, when it comes in, it produces, at the very best, an imitation, a fake Christian, a fake righteous person. But inside that fake is the nature of that which is violated growing up. So that the more right you are, the more puff up in righteousness, and you feel good about yourself because you just went to church. You sucked up all the sermon, and the preacher loves you, you see? And he just gives you a nod of approval for accepting his gobbledygook.
But I also noticed that it carried over into other areas of my life. I also doubt other things. And it also enabled me to be able to have, how can I put it? I had like two groups of people. There were the sophisticated, always right kind, and then there were the kinds that had fun and enjoyed life. And it was also the thing, too, that I always held a belief that at some point when I had done all the things that I wanted to, that eventually I would go back to that
Religion.
God. Yeah, and it kind of left me in a confused state.
Yes, well, I imagine it would, because the whole thing is confusion. But the point that I was making is that this is the point, and this is a very valid one, and you may have never seen it before, and it may be a will-o'-the-wisp as I explain it. But whatever it is that makes you need religion, let's say you have one of those parents who is not real, who goes to church every week, who is a phony, and you see that they're phony, and they are impatient and cruel, but they are, they spout verses and chapters all the time, and they talk about the Lord, this and the Lord that, and the Lord Jesus this, but you, as a little child, you see that. All they're doing is losing themselves in these ideas, these concepts, and they think because they know about God, that they know God, almost that they are God themselves, and they are good, because they believe in their idol who tells them they're good for learning all these phrases. And because by learning and acquiring verses and chapters, they're actually rejecting the truth. They're losing themselves in knowledge and acquiring an illusion of worth. See, now, it's the same principle of acquiring illusions of worth can be applied to a man when he gets an illusion of worth by love. It isn't religion here, but yet it's like religion, because after all, it's a source of direction, a source of love. The preacher loves you, the Pope loves you. See? And you have to perform in order to be loved. And what is this performance? It's an obedience to a wrong spirit, the spirit of your corruption. And every time you perform, and every time you involve yourself with a knowledge of which makes you righteous, it's really a denial of reality. See, you go out on Monday, you go to church on Sunday, and you pray on each other, and then pray on each other on Monday. You see, and then you go back to be kosherized by more of the same, sing songs, and you steep yourself in the atmosphere of stained glass windows, and you drink it all in. See, and it goes to your head like an alcoholic with his wet wine. And you feel you've rejected reality. You've taken away your anxiety. You feel loved. But you don't realize that by losing yourself in that atmosphere, you're rejecting God, but you're also drawing up an identity. Because every time you reject the truth, you're accepting a lie. And the lie is making a home in you and starting to give you conflict about what you, who now we're getting some questions, are we not?
It sounds like you're saying we're all, in a way, demonically possessed,
Yes, correct.
in the strictest form.
In the most serious and most strictest form. We are demon guided.
The idea of saying I'm saved, I'm a Christian, is a lie.
Yeah, the fact that a person says he's saved as a Christian is one of the biggest lies. As I've always said, a born-again turkey is still a turkey. That even the born-again experience can often be, and is most often, a form of self-delusion. In other words, you lose yourself in the emotional excitement of the idea that you're saved, when all you are is saved from seeing that you're not saved. And what happens is that you have to keep going back to church every week to have that idea of salvation reinforced. Now, how if you had to go back to the hospital every week to get a treatment to make you well, you obviously wouldn't be well. See, that's the logic of that. Salvation is where you have been saved from the spirit of the world, that you no longer need its chorus of support and reassurances, that you've done with religion, you've done with phony love, that you found everything you're looking for within yourself, where it was from the very beginning, before they made you doubt what love and truth was. Who understands what I'm saying? Good, good. Now, you see how sweet this is? How sweet it is. You see how sweet this is because it's so simple. What am I saying over and over again? You've always known it. Your problem is you doubted it. Your problem is when you doubted it is because you believed the other guy. That's what's made you ill. That's what's made you sick. Remember, you are a belief system. If you doubt yourself, it's because you believe something other than yourself. Now you find yourself believing what is other than yourself and controlled by it, because if you believe something, you'll act on it. Because the next thing that comes out of belief is act. And it's the act that's very important. Yes. Now, we'll talk about that in a few moments if you like. The belief and the acting out of that. It completes the brainwashing. It completes the ritual. Yes.
A few minutes back you had made a comment on how, how people, how they go to church to, I guess, righteously fill themselves up to attain for what they've done during the week, so to speak. Sort of like
atone.
Yeah. Like atonement.
To be kosherized.
Yeah, exactly. Like you put it.
Like a kosher pickle.
I could pick this off. When I was younger, I've been through, I guess, 2 churches, Roman Catholic, and also, the Holy Rollers, if you call it.
Right.
I'm not, picking on my mom or anything, but I used to.
But you should.
No.
Now, don't be afraid to pick on your mom.
No, but she would. Okay.
She got it coming.
My sister and I, we saw the inner phrase out there at church. They saw nice, sweet Anna, but at home
you saw the real Anna.
It was like the possession.
Santa Anna,
so to speak. Yeah.
A strong wind. Hot.
Exactly. And I used to visualize. I used to pray that I could videotape this.
That side of your mother, that gets roasted. That gets toasted, and glorified at church. See, that fills up with the spirit of pride. But that's wickedness. She's filling up with it, just like a person getting drunk. They feel so good about themselves, but they come home and now the spirit of that shows towards the children. It lets it out because it's safe. See?
And like I said, also, being a part before of the Roman Catholic Church, I used to attend masses with my grandmother. Now my grandmother, however, she's shown, she's been born a Catholic and she's been raised a Catholic. But yet I've never seen any difference in her house or in the church. She projects the same person she is. She believes, in God. She believes in the teachings with all of her heart, soul, and mind, you see. And my mom, using this as a relation right here, I saw this with my grandmother.
Now, are you saying that you've got two different kinds of people, one that's good, a good Catholic, and one that's not so good, right? One that's a hypocrite that shows the other side when they're not at church?
It seemed...
Are you saying that to me?
Hypocritical, yes.
Are you saying there are some Catholics or some religious people, whatever religion?
It was good. It still is good for my grandmother. But the thing
Is
is...
your grandmother a good person?
She very much so
Okay,
is.
now that's a good point. Now, you see, but what it is, though, without realizing, there is good in a lot of religions. Even Rajneesh, who was the ultimate archetype brainwasher, I read his book, and it was brilliant. Except I knew when not to buy what he was saying. The other guys, I wasn't brainwashed. I can read, and I can pick out the good, and I can throw out the bad, because I have the understanding. I have the love of understanding, so therefore, the love of understanding makes me compatible with whatever understanding is from any source, even if a dicky bird told me.
So what you're saying then is that if everyone went to church with that kind of attitude,
they'll be all right.
They would be all right.
But then they'd mostly they'd excommunicate them from the church, because there usually isn't that kind of preacher presiding. You see what I mean?
But Roy, how do you expect the good Catholics to react when they hear you say that they're addicted to the Pope and that he's passing out a lot of crap?
Well, I wish you wouldn't have said that. Did I put it quite like that?
Pretty close. Pretty close.
Well, I said I just have to modify it, yeah, and because that's only fair that you bring up the subject. Can we just continue this? Boy, saved by the gong. Can we continue this thought on the next segment? And it's a real cliffhanger, folks. You could just to put the record straight, that you can be a Jew and you can be a Catholic and you can be all that, just like who was it? Egyptian president who was shot? Sadat. He was a beautiful man, and yet he was like those fanatical. There was another group, fanatical. Was he a Muslim? Was he? See, he wasn't fanatic. He'd found from his religion, he found within the religion the goodness, the guidance to himself, while other people simply got stuck in the religion and became fanatical and developed a different identity. You see that? One that is completely opposite, that belies what it's purported to teach. But we're going to go into that in our next segment and sort of... ladies and gentlemen, please listen to me on my radio program in Los Angeles, 870 on the dial, 9 a.m., Monday through Friday, KIEV, and be on our audience on Friday nights. And remember, we need support for the program. You'll notice that this is an information program rather than one big commercial like Tammy Baker and Jimmy Baker and the other fruitcakes out there. Please don't identify me with them. This is a totally different concept, and we appreciate your support. Thank you very much.
Part 3 of this program will follow.
The foundation of human understanding teaches an observation exercise, often called meditation, which permits you to become objective toward your problems and allows your heartaches, bad habits, fears, and anxieties to be completely eliminated from your life without effort on your part. Until you have begun to practice this exercise, much of what you see and hear on the following program may be shocking and upsetting to you. But if you will listen calmly and with an open mind, you may discover the key to the peace of mind and joy for which you've been searching all of your life. And now, from the foundation of human understanding, here is Roy Masters.
Hello, everyone. Welcome once again to the program. My name is Roy Masters, and we're talking about mind control, religious brainwashing, and I have expressed the thoughts that all religion is brainwashing, and they're all cults, and even culture comes from the word cult. that America is a culture. And then we have subcultures, but what we're talking about is cultic. That is to say, a system of beliefs that spring up around one person. And that you form the beliefs that he has. He's a salesperson. And that the circle expands until it becomes a nation. And I've said, of course, you notice the phenomenon. I'm not down on the Catholics, you understand. Some of my best friends are Catholics. You know, my children are all married to Catholics, so it's not down on them at all. It's just something that's in the news. You could see that when the Pope visited America, throngs, thousands, hundreds of thousands flocked to touch his hem of his garment. And if they weren't born into Catholicism, they wouldn't have had that conditioning. Do you see that? And it wouldn't have meant anything. It's only, see, those sorts of things mean something to you when you've been violated into a religion. And that you haven't really accepted the religion or the God of the religion, but you made a religion the God. And you've made the preacher who preaches the religion a God. And that you're caught up in it. And they're getting who you are from more deeply involving yourself with it. And into the homes like this of religious fanatics, the people who go to church every Sunday, pray on Sundays and pray on each other on Mondays, out of this hypocrisy, you see, children are born, or into this hypocrisy, and some rebel and some conform. And those who conform become Jews, Muslims, Catholics, whatever, right? I don't want to I'm not picking on any person, it's just all of it. No exceptions. Me included. Just joking. I can make jokes about me. I know some people get very offended when I talk about it. That's because the Jewishness in them gets offended, you see. And that's what I want them to feel. That we've got to be born of the same spirit. And the purpose of religion, if it be a purpose, is to bring you to God. You know, Muslims have their way to bring you to God, and Catholics have theirs, and Jewish people theirs. And the idea is to bring you to God, but not to bring you to the church. In other words, I believe that Jesus came to save people from religion, and they made a religion out of him. Now, I'm here to save you from religion, but then there are people who make a religion out of me. There are people who are addicted to me. Why are they addicted to me? That's a good question. And the answer is this, that once you have been violated, let's say you are a Protestant or Catholic, and you've been brainwashed, and you've rebelled against your faith. You can't stand it, you hate it. But when you hate it, you see, you've lost religion, because that's what makes you lose religion, is hate. Hate anything. And that's the trap of hypocritical religion, is that when the wrong spirit gets into that religion, when a bad spirit gets into it and misrepresents it, as all religion have a very noble beginning, but then the bats get into the belfry, and those who seek power then mislead with it. You see that? All religions have something very good in them originally. Buddhism, Catholicism, all forms of all the different denominations of Christianity, Judaism, all have something very good in them. See, trouble is, the not so good have got into it and it's like America being a great nation and having beautiful institutions, and the communists sort of slipping in and taking over and perverting it. And it's the wrong spirit there. And that wrong spirit doesn't want you to come to God. It starts to pervert the meaning of things. And when you see that wrong spirit, when you're very young and you see that wrong spirit as it has invaded and infected your own parents, and everybody around you is like that, it's easy for those people who have been violated and confused and think they know God and think they're good when they're not. Because they're not is obvious. It's not obvious to them, but obvious to you because you're a little kid and you still see clearly. So that you see, some of you rebel and you become good, whatever it is, good Catholics, good Protestants, whatever. Some of you rebel, but hate has separated you from the power of rebelling successfully. Only a successful union with God can make you rebel against the devil. So you can rebel against God, and if you hate somebody, you do. I'll say that again. You can rebel against God, but you can't rebel against the devil. Now, the trick is to make you rebel against your own best interests. So therefore, in any form at all where it appears to tempt you, even in the guise of religion, hypocritical religion, you see the spirit of hypocrisy as a child, and you hate it. And you may even think to yourself, if this is God, I want nothing to do, I'm going to be an atheist. But you hate it. That hate separates you from religion and makes you need the religion that makes you need the spirit and the religion, because now you have to substitute the love of that religion, the religiosity, the verses, the words, all that which is artificial from what you've lost in yourself. I didn't say that very well. Do you know what I'm trying to say? In other words, you had religion when you saw that wasn't religion. You saw the words were right, perhaps, but you saw the spirit was wrong. It was a spirit of hypocrisy that covered itself and pretended to be what it wasn't. But you could still see it, and you knew the truth. But because it was authority, it made you doubt that you knew the truth. Therefore you lost the truth, and then it gave you its truth. And you began to depend upon the flow of knowledge, or supposedly understanding, that came from that. And the more you depended on the flow, the more confused you became, because it wasn't. Who understands what I'm saying? You understand that? She's the lady over here first.
So what's a successful union with God? My mother thinks a successful union with God is to wait and go home to heaven with him. So while she's down here, you know, she's turned her cheek so often that she's been basically beat up. She believes in things of black and white, you know, and her union with God would be something like waiting for him to come back and get her and take her to heaven.
In other words, she has a false concept of what it means to turn the other cheek. So she lets everybody walk all over her.
Right, yeah.
See?
So what's
and she
a
lets
successful
anybody
union?
And then she's, in other words, she's a wishy-washy nobody, right?
Yeah.
She lets everybody take everything she's got, and she thinks, but that's weakness. She gives everything to the church, all her money to the poor, and she has nothing. That's because she doesn't know. She does that for the idea that she's good, rather than to admit that she's weak. There are a lot of people who give the shirt off their back for love. See? And they are, for instance, let's just give you an example. Let's say you have a candy bar, and you're a little kid, and your mother says, well, you should share it with Johnny. Don't be greedy. And you don't want to share it with Johnny, right? And then she says, you're greedy. You should share it. And you get upset. Then you feel guilty. And when you feel guilty, well, you feel like you want to relieve the guilt and do the right thing. Then you share it with Johnny. Then every time somebody wants something from you, from that point onwards, you've been violated. What I'm trying to say is that you should want to share when you want to share and not a minute before. Is that correct? And then those who love you will simply wait for you to share. And feel the discomfort of not doing so in its own natural course. And you experience the consequence of it in its own natural course. You then learn, those who love you, but for the rest of your life, every time now that you're made to doubt yourself, and you're made to share, and made to think that giving your candy bar to someone who says anybody who says you're greedy, you're selfish, you won't babysit for me. Now pretty soon, in order to get the idea that you're a good person, you're going to be doing everything for everyone, and you become everyone's slave for the idea that, and you're wrong as hell. You're as weak as hell. You're a nothing person because you can't say no. Just like the kids on dope, they can't say no to anything because they need approval. Same principle. But you are a nothing human being, but the church rewards you for being so good. And all the worst people now home in and take you for everything you've got. And at the end of your life, you're all broken and disillusioned. Maybe not. Maybe you think you're going to heaven because you gave everything. Is that right? You know,
I remember
you
when,
relate to that, do you?
Yeah. I remember when I was small, I was going to Catholic school, and I went to public school first, and then my mom put me in Catholic school, and I had this vision that, you know, the nuns were going to be really nice and sweet and everything, and I said,
Why are you
"Good."
laughing?
And so when I went, you know, because I thought, well, public school wasn't bad, you know, I didn't think the teachers they were not nuns, so I said, well, you know, but when I went to Catholic school, I said, these nuns are going to be really nice and everything, and they were worse than the public school teachers, and I was so confused because I thought that they were supposed to be good, and they were so wicked, and
Cruelty is a
really,
form of brainwashing.
really mean, and
You see,
I
to
couldn't
make you
believe
resent,
it. Yeah.
to make you resent God, feel guilty for resenting God, and then they'll give you the means to atone for that guilt, and then you end up serving that which has violated you, just like the candy bar thing.
Mhm. Yeah.
They make you perform little duties, and they make you learn this verses and chapters, and
Yeah.
they give you impossible. They give you now an idea of perfection or goals to attain, which is impossible. And if you fail, it's your fault.
Yeah.
And then you try harder.
Yeah.
And the harder you try, the more you fail. The more you fail, the harder you try.
And if you fail,
And
they
if you
punish
fail, it's
you.
always your fault. You
Yeah.
didn't try hard enough.
Yeah, they punish you really severely.
It's-
You know, so
See,
you
they
wanna
punish
try.
you for failing,
Yeah.
and you resent that, and you feel guilty, and you feel guilty, you think you take the blame for it.
Yeah.
You remember the victim always takes the blame. May I see a show of hands, please, to understand?
So, Roy, then what is turning the other cheek? You started you're saying that's not turning the other cheek. What is the...
Turning the other cheek is only a metaphor. It is only something which means something. It's not simply if somebody smacks you on the cheek. There are very often times when you don't turn the other cheek. But turn the other cheek simply means not take offense. That's what it means. For example, it's a colloquialism. I suppose that's the way of saying it. For instance, the one that I like to quote is, supposing I was saying in one of my sermons, now, ladies and gentlemen, I was coming to work today, and this all the tape recorders are running, all the scribes are writing, I'm the great I am. And I said I got on a bus, and I had my eye on a seat, and a woman sat on it. How would you translate that into Greek? You know, I know what I meant. Everybody in these days knows I didn't have my eye on a seat. See, it means something, and Jesus spoke in those terms. It comes across, you know, then Jesus' eye was sitting on a seat, and someone sat on it. And now we try to make some sense out of that, but we can't make any sense out of it. Turn the other cheek simply means don't take offense.
Roy, you made a statement before that you can rebel against God, but you can't rebel against the devil.
Now we're coming to the point.
Okay, what I want to know is, can't you rebel against the devil by not giving into ego and compulsiveness and, you know...
I was speaking generally.
Okay.
You cannot of your own strength rebel. That's the reason why I missed the point. Sometimes I get caught up in all kinds of stuff. I miss saying, why do people get caught up with Roy Masters or cults or anything? Is because they need something to save them from what they're already compelled to do, and they would if they didn't fight with everything they could. And they have a feeling like a woman tries not to become like her mother. See, she hates her mother, but because she hates her mother's cruel. But her mother is inside her now. Now she tries not to be like her mother. Why is she trying not to be like her mother? Because something like her mother is already within her. And she's always fighting that. Now, it's the same thing with resenting a religion, or being married to a woman and finding out she's a witch. Well, how can you escape? Because you are made of what you hate. So you're always in danger of being sucked into conformity, but you struggle to rebel. But even as you rebel, the rebellion makes you more of what you hate. It's a very difficult thing. So what you do is you transfer images. You transfer your loyalty to something. So you leave your wife and you find another woman and you attach yourself to that. You go from this religion and you make an icon of somebody else's religion. And you get involved in that. But now you are doing the same thing with this other religion or cult. The kids are doing with the cults what their parents are doing with their religion. What they hate their parents for, because now they're involved with it themselves. And they can't see it. Who understands me, pretty much? And so it's as like I said, you can't rebel against the devil because here's one devil over here and you rebel against, and he's over there. Did I ever tell you the story of the jewelry store? I didn't? Oh, must be a whole new audience. I got a new audience for my joke. I used to be in the jewelry business. I'm a diamond cutter, an expert, cut some pretty big diamonds, and I know it. I'm a journeyman. But I left the trade and I started my own business. But in the interim, I got a job as a salesman, a diamond salesman, and I worked in one store, and it was a sort of a schlocky store. It was just for a short period of time. And the people would come in and they get brainwashed. No sooner had they made their payments, their last payment, and the salesmen were on them like flies. And they never get out of the store that they'd bought something they didn't need to ease the pressure and to get the approval of the salesman. See? That's how it works. Conditioned reflex response. But some people came in the store and were absolutely outraged over the fact that they were pressured. Never mind. They'd rush right out and go to the store next door that was posh and low-keyed and patronizing. It was owned by the same guy. You get them, see? So it doesn't matter which you go, from one religion to another, from one woman to another. What saves you claims you, if it isn't God. You understand that? And the God that can save you is within you. That's what I'm trying to say. And I'm trying to get you to see the foolishness, the craziness, the things that if you could see it, you'd stop going out here and going over there and rushing to and fro and studying this and studying that and studying the Quran and studying Hebrew and studying Catholic, whatever it is. You go from Catholicism to Judaism or Judaism, Catholicism, it's the same thing. Not that they're bad, but I'm afraid they've lost their original spirit. The wrong spirit, intellectual, educated, wimpy, spectacles, little bald-headed ministers, non-manly, non-understanding. They turn them out like cookies and from a cookie cutter from the local seminary. I mean, my brother's, God help him. I find out, I've been warning him about his kids. And one rebelled just like I said he would. And the other one, he didn't become a homosexual like I thought, became a rabbi. He's 22 years old and he's married, he's a rabbi. Now, what does he know about life? What does he know about life? Nothing. He's married, he knows, he's got everything he learned from a book. And now he's going to teach everybody. I can't live with people who are clones. See, why do you respect me? Why are you here? I told you I have no degrees. I'm a numbskull, I don't know anything. But you know I know. I'm not hiding behind some cleric collar, right? See, you see a spirit in me. And if that spirit would get back into the religions, that would be all right too. And the likes of you and me, we could live with it. But the trouble is the religions have lost it. Yes?
Hi. I think perhaps some people here subconsciously, they might have a fear of you of perhaps being a cult leader. I do sometimes, and it stops me from advancing. A lot of questions pop up. Like the first one is the meditation. Sometimes you call it a divine hypnosis, and other times you say it's not a hypnosis. Is it a hypnosis?
No, they meditate. The trouble with people, the trouble with meditations, and the trouble with religions, the trouble with belonging to a group in order to learn to be, right, tends to be hypnotic, because if you are externalized, you simply transfer one externalization from one person to another. And so that everything is hypnotic. All of life is hypnotic. The whole idea is to get out of the hypnotic state. Now here I am trying to teach you, show you how to get out of the hypnotic state. But then there are many of you, because you're so externalized and have so little going for you inside, that you're all external, that the only thing, there's so little soul left. You're so psychotic, so conditioned easily, that you tend to transfer to yourself to me, that same relationship that you were escaping from. You tend to get caught up with Roy Masters. And I tend to become your guru, and you tend to think, what do Roy Masters think? And you tend to think Roy Masters and read Roy Masters and breathe Roy Masters. And yes, you would be hypnotized and you'd be caught up with me for sure. How many people in this room it's happened to? Come on now, on a show of hands, how many? Keep them up. See? But then you hear me saying, you're caught up with me. I don't want you to caught up with me. It's in the materials, it's in the book. Sooner or later, you see, you're caught up with, if you're going to be caught up with something, it's better to be caught up with something that doesn't want you to be caught up. Because you see, where you're caught, if your mind is over there caught up with this, and it doesn't have any intent to free you, but to catch you up even more in its relationship, how are you ever going to get free? If you're going to get caught up with something, then okay, get caught up with me. If you can't help yourself, right? I could live with it. It's not a condition that I wish to be permanent. Because slowly but surely, if you listen to what I'm teaching you, the things that I'm teaching you from a right spirit will be received by whatever's left that's right inside you. One of the reasons why you do get caught up with me, one of the reasons is because, one, you can't help it. Two, I'm the father you never had. See, I'm giving you an identity in a sense, an earthy one. Because it's, how can I say this? Another way of saying it. It's a Moses spirit against Pharaoh spirit. There's the children of Israel, those who love the spirit of Moses follow the spirit of Moses. Those who love the spirit of Pharaoh follow the spirit of Pharaoh. They follow because they don't have their own, they're not a Moses yet. But if you love what's in Moses, and you listen to Moses, and you see, you're following the good in Moses, because you yourself see the good in him, that's why you follow him. And the people who follow Pharaoh see something in them that's compatible with what's in Pharaoh. And the spirit of Pharaoh is teaching. But the spirit of Moses is going to bring you to the spirit in yourself that is like Moses. In other words, it's better to follow a good man than a bad one, because if you follow a bad man, then you're not following the knowledge that runs parallel to what he wants you to see deep in yourself.
Roy, so is the hypnosis, is it a meditation? I mean, the meditation, is it or is it not a hypnosis?
The meditation can be hypnotic, and very often is.
Is it supposed to be?
No. But when it is, it becomes a transference to me. When it becomes a transference to me, I give you back to you. If you listen to the meditation, it says, do it not because Roy Masters says so. Hear the transference. Remember, the hypnotist can transfer authority to anything. I could say, as a hypnotist, you see that fly, see that caterpillar walking on that book, all right? When you open your eyes, you will do what that caterpillar says, and you will. If I could manage to give the caterpillar to give you some instructions. See? Now, the authority has the power to transfer authority. It's called rapport. It's a well-known fact. The king is dead, long live the king. Right? Transference. All right? The pope is dead, long live the pope. You got another one there that programs you. Transference. There's all kinds, we know that. In psychology there's transference, right? You transfer to the love of the psychotherapist. Transference. You transfer to me from the evil, those who have manipulated, you've now transferred to me. But I have the power, because I'm not evil, I'm good in me, to transfer you back to you. And to the degree, and for the season that you you can't quite make it. It is better to listen to the Spirit in me and do what I tell you. Don't drink, don't smoke, don't take pot. It's better to listen to me, because that way you'll be living a purer life that won't get in the way of, that allow you the development of your character, so that eventually you'll be able to make that transference to the me and you. Who understands what I'm saying? Okay, now, that time went past very quickly, didn't it? Yes, it can be hypnotic. Yes, there's a method in the madness. And many of you have already benefited from that transference back to yourself. May I see a show of hands from those of you who actually came back to yourself? Good. Even my producer was caught up with me for a while, weren't you? And not now?
No, sir.
Okay, well, thank you very much. Would you join us tomorrow night? And would you make sure there is a tomorrow night by supporting the program? Are you learning something from it? Are you discovering? Are you growing? If you are, keep us on the air. Join us on the next program.
Part 4 of this program will follow.
Well, we've been speaking about religious brainwashing. And sorry you guys missed it if you missed it, but you'll just have to wait for when we have a rerun. That is, if we have a rerun, we need money to rerun, because you're our only sponsor, so please bear in mind that. And that's the last commercial you're going to hear for the whole program. Religious brainwashing, the whole purpose of true religion is to bring you to the realization that you don't need religion. Even the Hebrew scriptures and the Christian scriptures have said that you need not that others bring you to the truth, because the truth is within you. And there's also some scripture, if I remember it correctly, the time is coming, saith the Lord, well, not every man shall say to his brother, know ye the Lord, but I shall write my laws in their hearts, and I shall be in their mind, and they shall be my people, and all that sort of thing. I believe the times are here now, if religion is practiced properly and we can sort of cull out the significant truths in a sort of simple ABC fashion, to bring you to the door or threshold of the inner reality and open it up and let the light in or the spirit in, so that we'll all be the extensions of an inner spirit rather than from your local rabbi or your pope or your ayatollah or anybody else. See, because there are some religions which are beneficial, like Judaism and Christianity, and Muslim religion, and there's a lot of them have a lot of good things. But the trouble is, a lot of people, the religion as it's practiced today, with the kind of ministering that goes on, with the wrong kind of spirit, tends to make people addicted to the religion and fanatical, as you see. There's fanatical Christians, there's fanatical Muslims, there's fanatical all kinds. And it's the same wicked spirit. They'll kill you thinking they're doing God a favor. See? And every religion has had its fling in that, hasn't it? Name one that hasn't had it, and I'll show you a chicken with teeth. Yes, now, back over here.
Yeah, I've been accused of being a fanatic.
A Roy bot?
Yeah.
Are you?
I've kind of got to doubt myself. I don't think so. I remember being okay. I remember just how it felt. All the knobs and buttons. I remember.
When you were a child?
Yeah, for a long period of time, and it was a long time before my lights went out. And from where you're coming from, that's that thing. And I knew I'd never be right until, you know what I mean? I mean, it's not a. I didn't read about it or see it in a movie.
What you're saying is,
I recognize it. Absolutely.
That's the word.
And I have a fervor for, this is it, and people like say that I'm a fanatic about it, but it is it. And sometimes when people talk to me, I feel like that's a lie. When they say something and I want to speak up.
Can I just interject there? I'm going to do it anyway whether you like it or not, so shut up. This is the magic of religion. It's not what the person says, It's what he is. You know, we were speaking about hypocritical religion. People, they have the words, but they ain't got the music, pardon the vernacular. And you see that this is what bugs you. They say the words, but they're not that person. They're cruel, they're hypocritical, they're pretentious. Your spirit can't jive with it, right? Now, so therefore it creates all kinds of rebellions and conformities, a life of confusion and guilt and frustration because you can't find the answers after that, because the temptation of the hypocrisy and the cruelty has separated you from what religion is all about. You see? Instead of being a teacher, being an example, and what would the example be? If it was what he says, it wouldn't tempt you to hate. That's the key. It's the temptation to hate. See, I can teach my children to love because I am the example of what love is. I don't get impatient. I'm forgiving. I know where to draw the line, when to discipline, when to be firm, when to be gentle. But they can see that spirit moving in me, and the spirit of the children correspond to what's moving in me. And they acknowledge it. They acknowledge because they're acknowledging the truth. They're acknowledging the truth because what is in me, the truth. Therefore, I have brought them by love, an example, to the truth. But that's the whole idea, is to get them to acknowledge the truth. What did Adam do? He doubted it. He couldn't find a person after that was an example of truth because he lost it, and from that point onwards the whole human race was lost. So now we have a Jesus coming, and he had it, and people saw it, and then people could acknowledge it. That's it. That's the secret. The whole magic of salvation comes in the form, not so much words. The words and the music go together. The person with the right spirit, he has the right words. But sometimes the person with the wrong spirit often has the right words. But you can see the wrong spirit and it tempts you to hate. And when it tempts you to hate, it separates you from what religion is all about. That's the trick. And then it gives you itself as the answer. Just the words and more wrong spirit. You have to accept the words and the wrong spirit as if that was the way to God and to becoming good. That's the key. See now, so what do you see in me? The young man just said, I see, well, maybe he didn't say this, but I see where you're coming from.
Yeah.
Wow, that's it. I see it. See, that's the cure. The cure lies within the personality of the teacher.
But also, if I see someone, like I have a friend, Barbara here, she accuses me of being a fanatic. I want her to say her side of it if she wants. But, I see sometimes, how a woman you say can be confusing and tries to, mask things over. And I say, I can see where you're coming from with that without trying to attack, but just say, I'm sorry, you're lying there. If you want me to leave it alone, okay, but it's a lie. You know what I mean? And then I get accused of being a fanatic, and I don't quite exactly, Well, but I feel like I'm supposed to say something because it's just not right, because if I go like this, I'm a liar too, you know what I mean? And I don't help, it's a lie.
That's right. But the spirit of the woman needs to be saved from the spirit of the lie.
Right.
Now, first of all, you have to...
engaging in when I see it precisely.
When you're dealing with a woman, you're dealing with the spirit of Eve.
Yes. I'm quite aware of that.
But what does a woman, now we've had this discussion before, what does the woman want more than anything on the God's green earth? She needs to see the spirit of Adam restored to his original estate. She needs to see this man as a noble, brave, gentle, God-centered person, loving what God is, God, and true to himself, more than he loves her. Is that right? That's what he'd have to love, because then he's centered. He can't be controlled. She can't have her way. What she's afraid of, she may like it and also hate it, fear it, is having her way, because her way is not her way. See? It's the spirit of the woman that stood in the garden that men fell for, and men have been falling for it. Men are weak for it, because that's conditioning. That's the system. You see, making one doubt oneself. And all those who want to lead and control and to be in power, in one form or another, have to duplicate the spirit of the garden when paradise was lost in one form. of another. You have to. But I'm trying to say, what is the salvation from this? Is it studying words in a book? Is it listening to cassettes? Or really the bottom line is the person, by the fruits you shall know them, the effect that I have in you, you are a seeker. Each one of you are seekers. You're longing to know the truth. You see? And it takes one to know one. The other guys are egomaniacs. They have so long sold themselves down the river for approval and become so prideful, they may be afraid of seeing what they are. They'd rather go to Jim Jones to their death rather than face reality. They cannot live a life of what they think is hell without that which made hell into a heaven. See, the guru, the drug pusher, the deceiver, tends to help you to think that hell is heaven and heaven is hell, so you can't live without them. You can't live without your booze. You have to go to church every Sunday. Otherwise you feel guilty. Don't you see that? It is, and so therefore the bottom line is, does Roy Masters have a spirit that you can recognize, that he helps you to take a firm grip on what you've always known is true, while the other guys have just done the opposite? That's the cure. That's where salvation lies. That's why you feel, when you cross the dial and you hear a little bit of it, you say, wow, something clicks, does it not, ladies and gentlemen? See? Is that right?
Yes.
I see you nodding your head and you're next up.
I was very rebellious and angry when I was growing up, and I was channeled into therapy and group therapy and psychology and all this, and that just kind of made me more angry. But when I started listening to you and started doing the meditation, it kind of sunk in. And I was wondering, since we talked about religion, if you could expound a little bit more on the difference between what do you call it, psychocatalysis?
Yeah, that's an old name that I coined when I first started, because I want to give it a name.
Okay. And the difference between psychology?
Well, the psychocatalysis, I'd simply combine two words in those days. Talk 20 years ago. You must have had an old record.
Well, one of the first 3 tapes, yeah.
Yeah, so I haven't used that for a long time, but it's still excellent. The combination of ideas is psychocatalyst. You know what a catalyst is? It's something that in chemistry. It's an element that expedites and makes possible chemical changes, and then without being changed itself. You can withdraw it from the process, and it just makes possible chemical changes, but never itself becomes involved in the change. See, so I thought that was a nice idea. I don't get involved in the change, but I made the change possible. It's a neat combination of
Could you
ideas.
expand a little bit more? I'm trying to remember what you said, and that's the reason I'm asking is why this practice of the meditation is so much more beneficial to us, and there's more progress made with psychology. A lot of people are hung up on psychology like
yes,
religion
yes.
too.
Yes, you see, the psychology is the spirit of education. You can stay there if you like. Psychology, remember in the garden, even if it's only an allegory, right? In the garden, there stands the spirit of truth, understanding without knowing, without knowledge. But it is a sort of knowledge. It trickles down into knowledge, and then you know, and you're able to express this from within above. But the enemy of man wants to separate. He wants to control you, and you see, and it wants to separate you from God, from knowing without having intellectual knowledge. And so therefore, when you fall for intellectual knowledge, you become possessed and manipulated by the spirit of that knowledge. And all of us, ever since, in one form or another, we never make our own decisions. That's why our lives are always in a mess. Because when we think we know, this process of acquiring knowledge and thinking we know, and making the knowledge of good and evil weighing one thing against the other, we do not realize that there's a spirit there, an intelligence there. We think it's our own nature. We think it's our own conscience. It's like our own conscience. But it always makes us end up doing the things which are wrong for us. Always. Then you have another problem, and then you need more knowledge, and when you call up more knowledge, in comes more spirit. And that's how you start. Your inner person starts to grow in conflict with the inner person that could have grown had you not gone that way. Now, psychology is more of the same thing. It is giving answers with a spirit of knowledge. That's why you never get better. I've been saying for years, and now it's beginning to become academic knowledge that psychology is just a waste of time. That people get worse, their lives continue to deteriorate while they're going through therapy. Thousands and thousands of dollars later, they're not any better. It's no wonder. They seek comfort in the spirit of knowledge, justification, rationalization. See? But that's why the likes of you and me, we can't go to psychiatrists. We see they're all crazy. We haven't died yet. We haven't completely dissolved. You understand that? That's why your spirit comes to life when you see and hear the likes of men like myself. There are other people around like that. There are lots of you around. Except you're so buried in your own fantasies, in your own confusion, in your own lostness. That you see that you don't see each other as you see me. You see me because I'm not lost in my own lostness. You see what I mean? Buried in it. That's why you see me plain and I communicate. And I'm able to strike a match, light a flame in you, and pretty soon you're communicating and you start to find each other. You see? Yes.
Yeah, I've been accused of the same thing by my wife, Roy Bott. But I don't, and I see that a little bit. I have been a little caught up with you, but I don't resent that, and I feel comfortable with that because I see that I need that right now. And,
isn't that right? If you're going to be caught up with something, it might just well be me.
Yeah, I mean, I trust you, and I'm not one of those. I mean, I'm a very skeptical person, so I mean, it took me 3 years to really. In fact, the last seminars when I saw you in person, I realized you're okay, for sure.
I'm okay. I really am. It can do that, can't it? It can do that.
It's like you said though earlier. I could always hear it, but when you touch someone or I could see you, all of a sudden I just felt real good with it. But
different.
Yeah, but my point, and the reason I do need it is because I had the life sucked down to me when I was young by a very domineering household and very, very cold household. And that externalized me into a lot of different things, and abused sex a lot when I got older, and it with girls and everything. And
the self that comes out of trauma experience is always a sex self. You know that, don't you?
And the point I'm trying to get to quickly, I finally realized that I need to stay away from that. By listening to you and meditating, I realized I need to dry up, as you put it.
Yes.
And now...
save your energy, and as you do, you're able to understand me better, and pretty soon, the more you do as I tell you, because you realize it's right, and you need a father substitute who never told you those things, and therefore you put yourself in my guidance, as you would a father you loved, because you recognize the spirit. So you entrust your body and life to me for a while. You find that the things I tell you to do haven't harmed you.
No.
They've only helped you to retain your spiritual strength, to keep away from all the things that would otherwise have embroiled you. It's because you love my spirit and you've elected me. I haven't forced you. Like my kids, they love me, and because they love me, I don't have to force myself upon them. The good in them loves the good in me, therefore they need something to look up to that's of the other world. They need that. They need that guidance because they're not fully developed as a spirit themselves. They need that spirit guide on the outside to guide them to the spirit guide on the inside. They need that attachment, that obedience, see, that respect for what is in me, for what is in them to grow to be, like me, independent. This is the way I put it, is that if my children, if I'm who I appear to be, And my children see that. And they love that. And my love for them is stronger than the appeals of the world. It overcomes it. It has to. Has to be stronger. And it is. They feel that pulling them away. And they need that. Because there is a tug of war for their souls. See, they're born, in a sense, subject to that condition. And my purpose is to be of such a shining example that they attach their little souls to me. And when I say no, they don't go. See, they don't. Even when the world says yes and I say no, they give in to me. They give in to my spirit. And therefore, they don't corrupt themselves. And because they don't corrupt themselves, they grow pure. And as they grow more pure, with less corruption, they develop an identity, a framework which is, at a certain point in their life, is closer to reality than they would have been had they corrupted themselves. See that? If you corrupt yourself, you invite a wrong spirit. And that spirit doesn't want to have anything to do with the truth. It confuses the individual in whom it lives. Do you see that? And it doesn't allow you to see the truth. It makes enemies seem like friends, and friends look like enemies. But if I love my children, and they love me, they know that I know. That's it. And that's called faith in their Father they can see, so they can have faith in the Father they can't see, eventually. So therefore, they stay away from trouble, and they grow as they should, and at a certain point, their spirit has evolved in obedience to the Father they can see, is also obedience to the Father they can't see, because that's what the law is, honor your father and mother. But they have to be honorable. How can you otherwise? See? So now they reach the point of maturity. It's a very small step to transfer the allegiance to the Father they can see to the Father they can't see, because by that time the Father is ready to receive them. See that? Well done, young sir, young lady. Right? You see that? It's easy. That's the reason why many of you see me as a dad you never have. Can I see a show of hands? You put me in that role, don't you, even though I've never required it. Is that right?
Yes, yes.
May I have your comment?
Well, I've seen that, and I don't, like I said, I don't feel uncomfortable with that. You know, my wife has seen that too now, and she.
But she's a jealous God.
Well, she doesn't listen to you, and so she thinks I'm a little nuts, I guess.
Is she here tonight?
Yes, she is. But what has happened? The last manifestation of all this was, like I said, I abused sex a lot when I was single, and that's how we met, as a matter of fact.
That's how she got to be a god.
Yeah, I guess. And now that I decided I need to stay away from this and dry up, she resents
feels
it.
Threatened. No,
she
feels
resents
threatened.
it and says it's her right, you know. And so I thought maybe by
she's
bringing her
addicted.
here-
No, she's addicted to your addiction.
Well, I see that, but
You see that? She's threatened.
She wanted to come here tonight to get it from you, to hear it from you, because she doesn't. My explaining it does not do it, and but she won't listen either. So.
Well, she'll have to ask me the question. I can't really talk to her unless she wants me to talk to her.
Do you want to ask a question?
It's up to her, not to volunteer being spoken to. Thank you very much. I don't like to push myself on you. If
No,
not.
I intended to talk to you tonight anyway.
Thank you very much.
So, no, my whole reason for being here tonight is because I want to understand. And I just don't. I don't understand how. I understand what he did in the past was very bad in his single life, and that his abuse of sex was very bad, but I don't understand how his becoming celibate now, when we are in a good, solid marriage, how that is going to help him absolve himself and atone himself of all these bad things he's
I don't
done.
think he needs to be celibate, but I think he needs to back away from. It's like, you see, you have to recognize his needs too, and if you love him, you must realize that he's going through some kind of conflict, and that the kind of identity that has grown up through abusing women in the past, and including you, has caused conflict in himself because he's a good man.
Right.
He knows that he's got an identity like the alcoholic gets an identity from drink, or a woman gets identity from food, a person gets an identity from a cult. But the woman is a very strong possession. Women, for him, has a very strong hold on his mind, and he realizes that he can't be weak for you and love you. He needs to break away from you just a little while because so that his obsession for you, which he recognizes, is no longer obsession but love. See, he's got to break away, he has to dry out, he has to back away and be quiet just for a little while so he can find his real self. See?
Mm-hmm.
You've got to give him a little space.
Well,
Don't be too threatened.
I can understand giving him
You'll come out of it a better
space.
man.
I can understand giving him space. I almost feel like I'm being punished.
Yeah, no, yes, you are, because you think he's trained you to think that sex is love. He's taught you to accept his weakness and to sexually service his weakness. And this is causing him great conflict, as it will you if this relationship continued. If this relationship continued where you feel cheated of his sexuality, thinking sex is love, and therefore the more sex he has, the more love, but after a while there won't be anything left of him to give. See, because sex is not love. He has to get away from the idea that sex is love before whatever love is can appear. Yeah.
It's more than the sex, though, isn't it? Isn't it the obsession?
Yes, that's what I was trying to say.
The obsession.
Say it in your own way. Say it.
Well, no, I'm just saying that it's more than just the physical. It's the fascination. It's the adoration that a woman in an early relationship that has gone bad comes to identify with love. That obsession, that fascination, that adoration of her.
It's a fascination.
Sex is only a manifestation of
It's
that.
right. It's a fascination with a man's downfall. Sex is a weakness for a woman, and every woman knows it, don't you, ladies? Is that right? How many ladies know that? See, men have a weakness, and you catch them through their weakness. And the relationship should never begin that way. Relationships must begin. Oh, I got cut off. This is a cliffhanger, and we'll continue our concept tomorrow evening, and tomorrow night she'll still be standing there. and we have a little bit more time to expound on it. It won't be tomorrow night. We're just doing all these tapings in one evening, so for the listeners and the viewers, it will be tomorrow evening. Please, if you want to be in our audience Friday night, you have to call the foundation for reservations. Keep us on the air with your contributions. More than that, start the meditation exercise. Announcer will give you the information as of now. Thanks for listening, and join us again.
Part 5 of this program will follow.
The foundation of human understanding teaches an observation exercise, often called meditation, which permits you to become objective toward your problems and allows your heartaches, bad habits, fears, and anxieties to be completely eliminated from your life without effort on your part. Until you have begun to practice this exercise, much of what you see and hear on the following program may be shocking and upsetting to you. But if you will listen calmly and with an open mind, you may discover the key to the peace of mind and joy for which you've been searching all of your life. And now, from the foundation of human understanding, here is Roy Masters.
Hello, welcome once again to the program. My name is Roy Masters, and we're discussing religious brainwashing and allegiance to cults, including myself. Although I'm not a cult, I'm an anti-cult cult. No, that doesn't work either. I'm trying to bring you to yourselves, and there is a caught-upness. There's a tendency for a lot of people to be caught up with me, and it's not what I wish, but I can live with it until, as long as I'm teaching you the truth, I can at least, if your fascination is going to be on something, it might just well be on me as anybody else, if I have your best interest at heart, to free you. And I'm going to I can't free you if you don't pay attention, if your mind is over here. See, so if you're going to be focused in on something, okay. I'll show you how to be focused back, or defocused, back on yourself. That's the whole idea now. What happens is that when people become more sensible, they start to come to the light, they become less sensual, or less sexual. So therefore, relationships like what we're about to discuss right now can get into trouble, because especially a young couple, when a man falls in love with a woman, he really doesn't fall in love. What is he falling in love with? He's falling from love. And then he has an identity that's growing up in him that's being supported and sustained by the false love of a woman. But the false love of the woman who loves and accepts the sexual identity, the psychosexual needs that men have. After all, the sexuality is really the outcrop of one's inner weakness, falling away from God, sort of becoming one's own God, but a sexual one that's very insecure and seeks the psychosexual services of the females. After all, it was a female in the Garden of Eden, not just a snake, right? She may wriggle like one once in a while, but the thing is, it is that service that debilitates a man, and men in their psychosexual needs become addicted to the services of the very thing that's violating them and making them sensual instead of sensible. See, the beauty is making him into a beast, and the beast is beginning to realize that he's becoming a beast and starts to hate the woman and so on. But the hate makes him more sexual and sensual. And the woman hates the man for being a beast, but then she feels guilty. And how does she deal with it? By being more sensually serving. So now the man in this particular case, in his descent, has suddenly awakened. And he's beginning to realize that he's not really loving his wife, he's just using her to service his ego. Is that correct?
Yeah.
But you've taught her that that's what love is. And it seems like she's losing you. And instead of being able to involve herself with you and you with her, suddenly she's looking at herself and feeling very insecure and betrayed. Is that correct? You're feeling betrayed.
Yeah, his timing had a lot to do with it
His
too.
timing.
Well, I'm 5 months pregnant, so.
Well, you don't need any sex if you have family. I mean, this is a nice space. You've got 4 months to go.
That was a convenient time myself.
It's a great time.
Well, I think that helped contribute to my insecurity.
You see, your security comes from his weakness. That's what you haven't seen yet. He's losing himself in you, and you're losing yourself in him, and you're getting a surge of strength and security. Power is what it is. You're like the addict, the dope pusher with the addict. He is becoming weak for you and weaker for you, and the more you rise to the occasion of his need, the weaker he is, and the more strong you are. And you feel secure through his weakness, like the dope pusher with the addict. The dope pusher feels secure through the weakness. So what would happen if all the drug addicts suddenly dried up tomorrow morning? All the dope pusher would feel betrayed. Wouldn't they? See? So I'm trying to say, you must see beyond this moment. The man loves you. He truly does. What you should want as a woman is not sex so much, but love.
Well, I always viewed the acts of our lovemaking as a celebration of that love.
I know you're a typical liberal. Are you a liberal?
Not really. I'm a staunch
That sounds like
Republican.
love.
I mean,
You sound like Jacques Cousteau.
well, no.
He makes a serenade with frogs having sex with each other. Puts it to music. He's glorifying his own weakness, of course.
No, I think part of the problem was his revelation, if you want to call it that, to me, that sex for him between us was always just the physical satisfaction, and for
Right.
me it was always something much more.
What was it?
That I had a feeling of love and of
Uplift, glory. It's glorifying. I tell you, the dope addict glorifies on the needs of his victim. He fills up. It's the same thing exactly. You're getting a false sense of worth. A false sense. You're not getting love, you're getting power. And you're addicted to his downfall because he is beginning to see it as a downfall and as a weakness. You should have seen that. But there's something in you that doesn't want to see that his need for you is a weakness. And that in you that doesn't want to see his need for you as a weakness has a need for power. And you're encouraging his weakness as if it was love for you, because you want to be worshipped. There's something in you that wants to be worshipped, glorified. And you're more interested in the feeling of glory than you are in him. Remember, he said, for me, forget about you. How about him? He's going through something. Why don't you stand back and say, hey, forget about me for a while. Maybe he's onto something. Well, whatever it is, I'll let him go through it. Maybe he needs a little space. You're too interested, you're feeling insecure. See your own needs? You're not a complete person. There's something you want from him that isn't good for him to give, and he's discovered it.
But he's also set her up for that.
Yes, of course. You know that, don't you?
Oh, yeah.
You've taught her that.
Sure.
You've taught her to serve you and to be fulfilled by the ectoplasm of your gut. You know what I mean? To be served by the deterioration of your essence. So she absorbs your essence as you fail, and she bloats up with it. You've taught her that's her reward.
I thought I was the king, you know.
That's right. She gave you the illusion that you were a king, but she had the reality she was a king. She made you feel like a king, and she lived off the feeling that you gave off. You know when you drop 2 Alka-Seltzer tablets in a cup of water? Well, when a woman offers a man love and services his sexual needs, he gives off a feelings, effervescence, right? He gives off, you can almost feel your skin tingling, gentlemen, can't you? You can feel your energy, and something goes out of you, and a woman parasites off of that. A woman who hasn't got her own center glorifies it, and she breathes it in. And she has to excite a man to fall for her, and then she experiences that his failing as a worship, as love for her. And you're noticing that, aren't you?
Mm-hmm.
You see that you're deteriorating, and that's the reason why you stand. If it wasn't that, if it wasn't something bad happening, you wouldn't stand back, would you? But she hasn't seen it yet.
Well, not only I felt the power I was losing and just getting weaker and resenting
And
it.
the power she was gaining, that's
Yeah.
what she felt stronger.
And I resented it, but also the thing that really woke me up, because I've felt that before, the lost power with other women, and I felt something, you know, but the thing that really kind of woke me up was I realized that it's really making her my God instead of God my God, and I was
In 20
separating
years,
myself.
in 20 years, she'd also hate you for your weakness. She'd wake up one morning, and when you haven't got any more to give, and you turn into some little wimp that needed her approval, and you gave her the power to make you think you were something when you really weren't, when you were becoming more of a nothing than a something, but only a nothing that thought it was something. See? 20 years, 15 years from now, she'd hate you for that. She'd feel something dark and ugly, and she'd sort of sense that you were responsible for her conflict and the hate she felt for you and the contempt. And yet, somehow, there'll be something in you that cried out to service you, and she would hate to do it. The more she'd love you, the weaker you'd become, and she'd feel like somehow she'd be afraid to love you. She wouldn't want to touch you. See, that's what would happen one day. That's what happens in all marriages. Who understands what I just said? Whoa! Is that right?
Do you want to make a distinction for viewers out there who might think that you're saying sex is wrong?
No, I'm not saying sex is wrong.
I know you're not, but I'm saying, do you want to make that
That's why I'm
distinction?
saying that a person who is an alcoholic doesn't know how to relate to alcohol without becoming completely freaked out by it. But I can teach a person to become whole with himself. A person who's whole with himself has no conflict. He has no guilt. A person who isn't whole with himself has guilt. And how does a person who has guilt and not whole with himself deal with that? By losing themselves to find themselves, to escape. Men do that with women. So therefore, what your husband is trying to do is to dry out, as he says, so that he can relate to your body and your person in a proper way. Like, you should be able to have a drink with your dinner, and he who striveth for the mastery is temperate in all his ways. He wants to give you sex with love, not with lust. He doesn't want to involve himself more deeply in you, drawing up some kind of illusion of a man from it, see, while deteriorating and abusing you in the process. You will feel abused, and he will feel used. He will feel trapped, right? That's the word, trapped?
Yeah.
Debilitated.
And she asked me, you know, what would be the right way, and I do believe there is a right way, but I have abused it for so long that at this point I don't know what it is.
He doesn't know what the right way is yet.
And I think
see.
it'll come eventually.
He wants to not abuse you. He wants to teach you. He wants to love you. He doesn't want to use you. He knows he's using you, and he knows that he's taught you that your security depends upon servicing his need and on demand. See, to prove your love, and he knows that that's not right, but you haven't discovered it yet, and you're beginning to feel a little alarmed or threatened because, am I right?
Mm-hmm.
Don't worry, you're going to have a better man. I guarantee you 100% on your money back. Or you can have your husband back with the money.
Okay.
Don't worry about it. Meanwhile, a pregnant woman doesn't need any sex. Right? Do you really need it when you're pregnant?
I guess not.
You think of the kid in there, he doesn't need that. You know?
Thank you.
My daughter has a zoo, and she has lions and tigers, and she has traveling zoo. But she has a place where they all mate, and so she had the two leopards, and two black leopards, and first of all, they had a hell of a time getting them together. If they were humans, they wouldn't have any problem, because humans are addicted. They jump on each other at the slightest provocation. And then they can't, they keep on jumping on each other after the job is done. you know, but they just don't know when to good enough alone, you know what I mean? So we've got to have a little humor here, those gets too heavy. But once the female's impregnated, she won't let the male get the poor guy. He's got more uses than just one, but she won't let that male get near him again. It's only natural. Once the cow's impregnated, that's the end of it. Right? It's not just for breakfast anymore. It's not just for fun. Sex is, when something's gone wrong with our relationship, which addicts us, because we are not meant to be sexual beings. Eventually, this information, if I had time to expound upon it, would help to sort of stabilize the population of the world. Because it's a proclamation that men are not meant to be always sexual beings. For a season, yes. That we must transcend and go and come into a beyondness that is more beautiful and more noble than just reproducing animals. See what I mean? And every woman longs for the man, that beyondness in a man, to lead her out of that duty. It isn't that pleasant, is it, ladies? Let's be honest. Come on now. Go. It isn't that pleasant, is it? I mean, in the formative years, yes. But you get older, it gets old hat, right? And then you see the man is using you, and he's less of a human being, and he's more, and the more you love him, the more of a cad he becomes, right? The more of a dog, the more of a wimp, because he's just using you to make himself secure, to get some kind of reassurance for an identity, which is a fallen one. And if you keep supplying that need, you become a party to his sin. And as you, just like the dope pusher is just as guilty for supplying the dope as the dope addict for taking it. Don't you see? Because when you supply the dope, you're doing the wrong thing. When you are tempted to do the wrong thing, it's for power. You're separated from the God of power, and you become a God of power yourself. And now the only way you can hold on to a feeling of security and to be a God of power, since you've lost your power, is to keep supplying somebody with dope, encouraging them to fail, and to get a sense of power over them and from them, a sense of life, to neutralize the truth of your death. A dope pusher, takes two to tango, the dope pusher and the dope addict. I mean, after all, the lion is tempted by the lamb. He's tempted the weakness tempts, see, for a reaction. So therefore, if it's in a woman, if a woman has no life of her own, no center of her own, she's going to be addicted, attracted, because she needs life. Yes, you know what I'm trying to say? She needs the excitement, the infusion from a failing person, right?
So if you're saying that if a woman is insecure, she becomes lustful, is that?
That's right. An insecure woman is lustful. She dreams of seducing men and men servicing her needs and filling up. See, just like men dream of women.
And also, if you have a lot of hatred, do you become?
If you have a lot of hatred, it separates you from. Remember what I've said hatred does to a person? It separates you from love. Do you know what makes a woman sexually active for men? I'll tell you what it is. It's hatred towards fathers. When a little child sees the weakness, there it is again, the love or the lust that he has for mother and the control that mother has over the father, the little girl hates the father because the father is no longer a sensible person, a heaven sent, but he's now the pawn, the extension of the will of the mother who's a witch, right? Whose witchery he is commanding service.
Could it also be that you hate your husband?
Yeah, I'm coming to that. I'm just going to go over it just very lightly. So you see, the little girl's resentment towards her father for failing to love her mother and also, therefore, failing to be an example and therefore be a shining source of love so that she could respect and keep her innocence intact. But now, that's what she wants from her father is love. But the father has no love because he's too busy being addicted and getting love and giving power. So there's no love in the home. The mother's a witch. The father is weak for that love. See that? There's no spirit, no innocence. So therefore, the little girl hates her father. Following me, ladies? Now, what happens when a woman hates a man? I've always said that, and I'll say it again, that men fall in love or fall from love. But women fall in hate when they see that man fallen from love. Little girls see that man fallen from love. That's the bad example, that weakness, that sensuous man without love, but he thinks he's got it because he's addicted to his wife. Mm-hmm. See that? Yeah. But he hasn't got it. He's too busy filling up and using his wife. And his wife's too busy filling up on power and becoming a witch. Frustrated one. She sees this. She resents him, hates him. The hate separates her from God's love. She loses her innocence, and now she feels empty.
That's what
now she feels sensual.
Yeah.
And she feels a sensual need for love from her father. She's jealous of the father's love for her mother. Now she goes off looking for love from men sensually.
That's what my...
Is that right, ladies? How many let me see a show of hands who understand that. You do, don't you?
Yeah. Well, my ex-husband went and he had a relationship with another woman, and I hated him for that. And now it seems like I'm becoming like he was.
Yes, it becomes very sensually awakening, doesn't it?
Yeah, and I'm doing like what I didn't like him to do.
But what will happen is that I know we were speaking on the subject of brainwashing, but now we're talking about identity transference, exchange. What happens is that the hate of the man not only awakens you sensually, but the more you are sensually awakened and perform the loving service that fallen men need to make them fall, so that you fill yourself with his life as he falls. Now you become addicted to his life and therefore addicted to making him fall. So the life, his essence comes into you, and guess what? You start to become masculine.
Yeah.
And you start to burn like a man.
And it seems like you just need it more and more.
That's right. The sexual burning of a woman that's increasing is only because she is assuming her inner person that really should be more beautiful and pristine and pure, not from this world, not from that relationship, is taking form, taking the form of a masculine inner form. It's filling an inner void with a masculine quality. She feels dirty. She feels icky, right? Ladies, you understand me? Who agrees with me? Good. Not all of you, but that burning that a woman feels is only not because she's a woman, but because she's becoming a man and she starts chasing the men.
Yeah.
And they start not wanting sex. So you have to stimulate them, and then now they'll know what it feels like to be a woman. Why don't you have sex? Well, I got a headache. See? I guess it's good because then they'll know what it feels like. Of course, now you also know what it feels like to be a man.
Yeah.
To become addicted. To become addicted. The manly woman addicted to the feminine man. You're chasing him all around the room and he doesn't want to have any. Is that right?
Yeah.
That's how God teaches us, I think, sometimes. Well, it's only because of an evolution downward. You become each other. When you haven't found God, the truth, you tend to make a god of another person to get something from them, but then you only get confused. Your identities become confounded, and you get lost in the shuffle. A little piece of you goes to that person, a little piece of them comes to you, and you don't know who the hell you are anymore. Is that right? But what I was trying to say is that in this war of the worlds, you have just come in out of the cold. You've experienced to some degree the things I'm speaking about, and that you want to transcend your sensuality. That doesn't mean to say you have to become celibate, become a nun or a priest. Not that they're celibate, but the point is, there's no need for that. You just have to learn how to relate to each other properly. You know, what more can I say? There's a way, and the way is within, and it's not in any books. I can lead you to the door, give you a little gentle push, and hope it's smooth sailing. And you can listen to my program, and when you're on the journey, you hear other people talking about the journey. And then when you're on the journey, you can check with me. Maybe you run into a little sticky wicket, and I'll know that you're on the journey by the questions you ask me. For instance, if you don't know anything about an automobile, then I could tell by the questions you ask me. But if I know that you're fixing your automobile and you're on the path and you kind of know a little bit already, and now you're on the next stage, I know by the questions you ask. I know you're on the right track, and I can relate to that. So may I suggest that the audience, if you're having more sex and liking it less, and if you're having more sex and liking it more, but you haven't got more to give, so you have to drink rhinoceros horns, you're drinking all those aphrodisiacs, and still, until you're just going down the drain with every experience. Then, if you're finding dissatisfaction in that kind of love, if you find it very disappointing, it's only because you're not relating to each other properly. Perhaps I can show you how it's done, how to relate to each other. But first of all, you have to get into your center, get very quiet, and find that inner life within you, so that you won't have to aggravate it out of everybody else. You won't have to draw it from your environment, from one another. Okay? You need to find the humanizing, not the dehumanizing relationship. It's within you.